just bought this stolen Demon 170 for $20,000. Which I realize under the circumstances sounds kind of, well, stupid. But trust me, it gets better. You see, the police recovered it before the thieves were able to get rid of the drivetrain. That's right, we have the trans, the diff, the Brembo brakes, and even some of the interior. Oh, and then there's the mileage. Oh, 61 miles. Like I said, it gets better. But as for the chassis, it's done. They cut it up into like 10 pieces. At this point, it's basically just scrap metal. So that really only left us one option. To find a new chassis, take all the good parts from the Demon 170, and build ourselves our own 170 from scratch. Same as our 170, this one was stolen, recovered, and then auctioned off at Copart. But unlike our Demon 170, this time the thieves left us a chassis that's in beautiful shape. In fact, the only damage I can find anywhere on this car is this little scuff back here on the driver quarter panel, which is going to be an easy fix when we go to paint it. There's really not much of this thing left. And yes, it is also full of trash, but for what we need, I think it's the perfect blank slate. A blank slate which we were able to win at auction for $6,500. Is it expensive for a shell that's, well, as bare gets? Absolutely. But unlike our Demon 170 over there, which has a certificate of destruction, meaning it can never see the road again, this one has a salvage title, meaning that once we're done with it, we can have it inspected and register it for road use like any other car. Now, the first step on the hopefully not too long road to recovery for this car is outfitting the body completely and getting it painted. And to do that, we had to order some parts. And parts. Then some more parts. Then, naturally, of course, we finished off by ordering even more parts. This is far and away the most parts I've ever had delivered to the shop at one time. So I think the only reasonable approach here is just start opening stuff and bolting it to the car. This is our brand new Demon hood. And just like on the last build, this one was VIN restricted, meaning we had to submit proof of ownership of that hunk of metal that used to be called a Demon 170 before Dodge would even sell us one. To mount our hood, we had to source a set of hood hinges too. Luckily with these though, we were able to grab a set we had laying around the shop. I do have to admit, I find it quite ironic that our hood hinge, that came off one Hellcat, and each of our two hood hinge bolts, they came off other Hellcats. We've already used 4 Hellcats in the rebuilding of this 170.
It's a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle. Let's see. I mean, we don't really have anything to compare it to, but it sits. It looks good to me. We ended up just getting a set of used black doors. God, these are heavy. I forgot how heavy these are. I mean, they really suck. One of the only things they didn't steal in the white chassis are the door hinges. So we're just gonna go ahead and leave the original ones in place and slap our new doors onto our old hinges. You all right?
No.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm
You go to the gym lately?
No.
Hey, that doesn't line up too bad for just eyeballing it and hammering it down with an impact. Yeah. Our first functional piece on this car. The mirrors we're going to use on this build. They're off a 2016 Hellcat, which yes, means we get to add another. And I swear this was not my plan. I really didn't think we were going to have that many cars wrapped up in building this one, but we're already at like, I don't know, like 7, 8, 9, something like that. I've lost track at this point. Now, next up on the list, and this one's kind of given away by the part number on the outside of the box, but it is our front bumper assembly. We've got, what's this? The lower grille. This is that lower black lip spoiler, which unfortunately I didn't buy the lip guards for. I know it's not very Mopar of me, but at this present moment, this is all we're after. This is the only part of the front bumper assembly that needs to get painted, so it's the only part we need to worry about putting on right now. On most cars, that front bumper, it will bolt onto a welded-on radiator support, but Dodge did things a little differently. They decided to make this whole front frame assembly bolt-on, which is awesome from a serviceability standpoint. Take, for example, these Boss 302s that I'm rebuilding. When the core support of that red one got damaged, there was a lot of pulling, banging, and welding, and no, it's not nearly as fun as it sounds. Given that this is such a common area for cars to get damaged, even if really light front end wrecks, I feel like Dodge deserves some credit here. All right, you think we got it straight?
I don't know.
First shot, will it latch?
Mopar quality.
Eyeballing it, right off the rip, exactly. And the hood latch works. now that we got a functional hood, before we toss on our bumper, might as well go ahead and throw on these fenders, which, with these, we can't really add to the whole Hellcat counter because both these are off Scat Packs. The very last thing we have to put on before we can throw our front bumper on is one of the only body parts that did come with the 170. Not that I had any reason to believe that these frame rails weren't perfectly in line, straight as an arrow, but the fact that this bumper beam just bolts right on without having to shift it around, without having to do anything weird, it's always a good sign. With our brand new front bumper, we are really limited in how we can mount this, unfortunately. Almost everything that attaches this bumper, it needs to be riveted to the bumper. There's a big black panel that goes from the bumper to this upper core support. We can't put that on. I don't want to do anything that we have to drill out. I don't want to make any type of permanent modification of the front bumper that just has to come back off to get painted. So at the moment, our only attachment points are those two bolts right there. And of course, we couldn't do it without a zip tie or two. So yeah, the bumper's gonna be flopping around a little bit. It's missing half the stuff that makes this thing look like a Challenger, but we do technically have a complete paint-ready front end. Now with that out of the way, we can move on to the back of the car, which is gonna be really easy, except for one part, which isn't gonna be easy at all, but we'll knock out the easy stuff first. The first piece, obviously, is the rear bumper. It's already fully assembled, and we can just slap it on. I meant that literally, slap it on. Next up on the rear end, the trunk. We snatched this thing off the same black Hellcat that we took the side view mirrors off. Make sure I crack the windshield. I swear to you, that was not set up. I do not have another rear windshield for this. It doesn't exist. This was just pure dumb coincidence. The assault on Mopars continues.
I can't explain.
If you bought one in 3 days, it would look like that.
Yeah, because it's gonna get stolen, but it's not the case.
It doesn't need to get stolen. I think you just look at it the wrong way and it's gonna turn into that. This time, I suppose it doesn't matter. Lay it on the windshield. It's fine.
There you go. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, it's a nice little support, isn't it? Well, at least the trunk fits all right. Now, the glass did have to come out anyway for paint. I was just hoping to be able to put it back in one piece. Hopefully, though, by the time this thing's done getting painted, we'll have another parts car in here, and I can just snatch a rear window out of that. Is there a possible argument there that I could have jinxed him? Maybe, but I don't think that's the case. Now, the spoiler we have here. It's a nice Hellcat spoiler, but it's not the one we need for the 170. The spoiler we're gonna use is just a little bit different. I believe it's called like SRT spoiler, something along those lines. You can see that even though we're not gonna put it on, because obviously we're not gonna paint this, it kind of bends around the rear bumper. I think some of the later model Red Eyes, the Super Stocks, they started coming with these spoilers, and it was standard on the Demon 170. All right, we got that little unexpected detour out of the way. Now we can install our antenna, if I can get it in the hole. There we go, and that leaves us only one more thing to do on the rear of the car, and I don't think it's gonna be fun. The 2018 Demons, they got wide body fender flares on all four corners, front and rear, but on the Demon 170s, they just gave us rear fender flares. I believe they said it was for aerodynamic reasons, who knows. Either way, the point is our new chassis, that's just a basic narrow body Hellcat, meaning it has no provisions for fender flares. We're building the Demon 170, we need 170 fender flares on it. We have a couple options to do that. We could go with an aftermarket set, but on a build of this caliber, I don't want to do that. I want to put OEM flares on it. And to do that, sure, we could just drill these upper holes in our narrow body quarter panel, slap it on and call it a day, but I think the most proper way to do it is cut out this section of the wide body rear quarter panel and try to get it onto our narrow body car. So when you buy these wide body quarter panels new from Dodge, they come as a whole assembly. This part's already welded into it, so we're not exactly doing like standard body shop operation procedure stuff here. It seems though we have all these spot welds drilled out and all those spot welds drilled out, it still doesn't want to come. It seems like this part is welded somehow to this outer skin, so I think what we're gonna do here is cut right about here just so we can get it all off and see what we're working with. So this is quite a complex little contraption here. This is our outer fender arch. That's what we really need. And this is the outer skin of the quarter panel. You can see all along the top. It's attached together with these little stitch welds. And that is why we had to cut that massive arch out of the quarter. This outer arch goes over what, for lack of better terms, we'll call an inner arch. The inner arch, of course, is attached to the outer arch, but it's also set inside the inner quarter panel structure. As for how this is all gonna work out trying to fit this sheet metal into the narrow body quarter panel, well, I don't know. We're just gonna hack out a similar size hole and hope for the best, I suppose. Got it. The cut and overall fit up of this panel turned out to be pretty close. We got a little adjustment to make there. We're off by a little bit, but I think we got it plenty close enough for the body shop to be able to do their thing and weld it in. So now we got to get on with drilling all the holes our fender flares are going to mount to. And to do that, we're going to need to fit up our flare. In this case, the flare we're temporarily borrowing off the Demon. I have zero clue if this is actually going to work, but I made a template out of painter's tape. We're going to try to rip it off and fit it up to the other car.
Question.
Let's hear it.
How are you gonna put it back on?
We'll figure that part out after we get it off, all right? Okay. One step at a time, all right? Quickly, let's go. So there's gonna be two parts here that we're absolutely certain are in the right place. That's the lip where the quarter meets the bumper, and then the same deal in the front. Those three holes, I'm good with. All these up top, these certainly could have got messed up. There's so much room for play in the template, if you even want to call this a template. So what we're gonna do is drill the high confidence holes first, fit up our flare, and confirm that these are still in the right place. And just like we thought some of them, they're on. Those guys, perfect. Those guys, perfect. That one, pretty good as well. Up top though, that's where we started stretching things. They're not quite right. But now that we got a good baseline, it shouldn't be real hard to drill the holes we know are right, then go back and adjust the ones that aren't. You can see the ones that were a little off. I had this one marked a bit high, same deal with that one and that one. Everything else was pretty much right on, except that. I don't know what happened there. That's like half an inch off. But hey, not gonna question it because now everything fits fine. Straight in just like the factory. Now, I'm not going to clip this all the way in because I don't want to break any clips pulling it out, especially while we don't have this upper panel secured. It's actually quite flimsy at the moment. Now we get to try to drag this thing up on the trailer and take it to paint. I'm not quite sure how well that's going to go, being that it's on a cart. I haven't towed something on it yet. I guess I kind of lucked into the easy job with this one. That thing's skating, look at it. Modification number one to the cart. It has these like weird knobs that are supposed to crank down and keep it in place. Unfortunately, they're fairly cheap. You crank them down hard enough to make sure these bars aren't sliding around and the nut just breaks off the cart. So what we're gonna do, or what we already did, is to just drill a hole in the cart and lock it in place with a nut and bolt. It's actually working pretty good. As long as we have one person on the side, in this case Fernando, to kind of guide it, it comes pretty much straight on.
Good?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good. I mean, the whole trailer's shaking. If there's a failure here, I think it's going to be with this cheap Chinese cart. I'm mildly confident. This thing is pink, like pinker than anything I've seen in my life type pink. And I freaking love it. This is the color known as Panther Pink, aka FM3, that was debuted by Dodge in 1970, only to be done away with the next year. 50 years later, original Panther Pink cars are so incredibly rare and sought after, and, at least in my opinion, one of the most beautiful colors to ever leave an automotive production facility. The Demon 170, it's Dodge's last true muscle car, and I couldn't think of a better way to honor that heritage than by painting it just an awesome, old school, classic color. Turns out Dodge thought it was a great idea too. For a not so measly $30,000 on top of the MSRP of a Demon 170, Dodge offered 40, quote, select individuals, mainly celebrities and people high up within Dodge itself, the opportunity to buy a Demon 170 Jailbreak Edition. Each one of these cars was painted a different color from Dodge's offerings over the years, including, you guessed it, one in Panther Pink. Now, if one of us regulars inquired about getting a Jailbreak Demon 170, you basically got a prettied up, long-winded letter that said kick rocks, which is one of the reasons I couldn't be more happy to be building my own from scratch.
I like the fact it's pretty unique, but the guy who has these colors,
yes,
not gonna be happy
about that. I can't say that that wasn't a thought in my head. Before now, some guy had a one of one, you know, really nice Panther Pink Demon 170, and now there's a knockoff version, a salvage knockoff version of his car. The good thing is we can race this one, we can beat on it and do, you know, demon things without feeling bad about it, right?
Yeah, you're basically building a Wish.com Demon 170.
Timu.
Oh, Timu.
Timu, yeah, that's the plate for this one. Timu 170, all right,
like
got
that.
it, got it. Today's video is sponsored by Team. No. Knockoff or not, I've never in my life had this clean of a slate to start a build from. It's the first time I've ever had a car painted on a rotisserie. It's a big stand that you can mount the body of a car to and then rotate around 360 degrees so you can attack it from all angles. Basically what they did is turn this into a 2,000-pound version of the rotisserie chicken at your local grocery store. This time we had such a clean slate, there was really no excuse not to go all out. I mean, the entire interior, trunk included, the engine bay, the underbody, which we'll see a little bit later, it's all pink. In fact, the only parts that aren't pink are the ones we chose to paint matte black. We did the optional matte black color scheme that they offered on the Demon 170s, which is the trunk, the roof, and a portion of the hood. Now, as awesome as it is to have a chassis that's so fresh and so clean like this, there is one major downside, and that's that we need everything. I mean it, everything. I'm talking every bolt, every screw, every little plastic push pin, and that's just on the hardware side of things. Then there's the hundreds of miscellaneous parts that we didn't find stashed inside the Demon 170. And that left us essentially two options. Number one, we blank check it at the Dodge dealership. Unfortunately, that one's not really gonna work because we spent all our money on a fancy paint job. Option number two, buy another car, a wrecked one that has all the stuff we need. This bad boy is a 2015 SRT 392 that unfortunately found its way to the salvage auction when a tree fell on top of it, but despite its current condition, it should give us almost all the dumb little stuff we need to get the Demon 170 in order.
I think this is the best representation about life being good to you, but you're still getting
Narrator, life was indeed not good. Next up on the agenda, outfitting our hood here. And this is actually the same exact thing as the 2018 Demon. The only difference is that little logo right there that says alcohol injected. Otherwise, it's the same hood, same trim, same everything. That also means that this is the second time we've done this, so we should be professional at it this time. We're just gonna go right for it. Lines up pretty perfectly with our little alignment tool there. Now on the bottom side, it just straight clips in, but on the top, there's these little push pins. We have 8 of them. You just have to kind of find the hole there and try to jam it in blind, like we just did. From the bottom side, you bolt in with these big shot glass looking plastic things and an 8mm. Never mind. So this is actually quite interesting. These are the factory pre-assembled Dodge thingies to bolt in that Demon hood scoop, and they have the wrong size bolt in them straight from Dodge. I spent the last 5 minutes trying to figure out why we couldn't get these things to screw into the scoop. It turns out they're preloaded with M5 screws, and what they need is M6 screws. I don't know how that one happened leaving the factory like that, but hey, we got it covered. It's all right, Dodge. I don't know, maybe they decided to get a little sloppy with this last batch of gasoline powered cars. They're all focused on the new EV stuff, and they said, just throw whatever bolts in it, it'll work, you know. Now, the way these Demon hoods work, they suck in all the air through this big scoop, then it's actually routed through the hood and out here, which brings us to our final piece of the Demon hood assembly, this little air grabber bezel that, yeah, clips in that way. How this all ultimately works, though, is this flat plastic surface on the air grabber bezel. This is going to seal down against our air box and route all that air coming in through our main scoop right into the intake filter. Or at least it will once we have an engine in the car. You know, I knew from the jump that I wanted to buy a parts car to aid in fixing the Demon 170, but it wasn't until right about now that I realized exactly how badly we needed it. While I was focused on plastic trim, nuts, bolts, hardware, I forgot exactly how much other stuff we needed that we're going to be able to get from this car. Parts like the lower radiator mount, even things like the horn, the windshield washer reservoir. We didn't have any of that stuff, and if we had to buy it all, it would have nickel and dimed us to death. The car, we paid $9,900 for it. This drivetrain, it's worth almost that. Then we have the brakes, the rear diff. We might actually make money while still getting the parts we need, though it doesn't usually work out this way. As for the bumper itself, there's not really that much we need off of it. In fact, the bumper skins aren't even compatible with each other. The 392 bumpers, these were designed specifically to run these little fog lights. The Hellcat bumpers, or in this case, the Demon 170 bumper, it wasn't designed for fog lights at all. They, instead, were designed to use these little side grills. And it's the same deal with the lower grill. In fact, this 392 has all kinds of weird options that I've never even seen on Hellcats or Demons. It has a provision for an adaptive cruise control camera. It has brake ducts. It has to be one of the highest spec 392s I've ever seen. For this car, though, we're just using a regular plain Jane lower grill straight from the Dodge dealership. Just go underneath and slide it right in like that. Slide these little clips onto our new plastic bumper cover, begrudgingly. Then we just screw it in from the bottom and we're Gucci. Of this big upper grille assembly, the only part we're actually gonna reuse off the orange car is this outer trim ring. For any of you guys who've done these plastic tab clip together bumper pieces, I think you know exactly how bad these suck, but it is never a good time. Now that we got our big raccoon eye looking plastic bezel in, we can clip in our fancy SRT grill, as long as we can get it aligned. Oh yeah. Final touch to our front bumper is our lip spoiler, which hopefully goes better than the last time I had Fernando help me install something on this car. Can't go any worse, right?
Definitely. But what is the covers of this thing? You should be putting it in.
We'll figure that out. I have a plan. Now, we got ourselves a fully assembled bumper that is significantly heavier than it was when it was bare. Wow. One thing that does strike me as just a little bit weird is that the Demon 170 is supposed to be Dodge's last real muscle car. It's the last hurrah of the Challenger, at least in internal combustion engine form, but the bumper, aesthetically, it's identical to every Hellcat that's came out since 2015, at least the narrow body ones. Don't get me wrong, it looks awesome. It's looked awesome since 2015. I just find it weird that they didn't do something, I don't know, a little more different. But either way, the only thing stopping us from putting this on the car now are headlights. And I know last episode I said I was desperately trying to find those direct connection logo headlights that came factory on the Demon 170s. Well, we found the part number. Unfortunately, they are just not available, period. None of the dealers I talked to could get them. I couldn't find any secondhand, none were floating around the streets of Detroit, at least that I could find. So my next thought was, why don't we use the ones off the 392? These headlights, they're not in terrible shape by any means. I mean, they got a few little rock chips, no big deal, but the issue we really have here is the Hellcats and the Demons. They have what's called the air catcher headlight, meaning this piece is hollowed out. And while you can simply press this lens cover out from the backside and have the hole for the air catcher there, you're still missing the whole LED light up assembly that goes in the backside, the part that has that direct connection logo. You can buy those inserts by themselves, either with a Hellcat logo or unbranded, for like 250 bucks. But while I was looking around for those, I found these instead. It's a set of brand new, straight from the Dodge dealership headlights that already have those LED pieces installed. It's a part out of the direct connection catalog. I don't know if it's for if you're building a race car and want to add headlights to it, but it's a complete kit. It comes with a wiring harness that we probably won't need. It even comes with, and this is the best part, bags and bags of Mopar branded zip ties.
I mean, it's legit.
It is. You know what'd be really cool? If they put Hellcat logos on the zip ties. That would be a game changer. What a beautiful sound. Not only did we get ourselves a fresh new set of headlights, but we got such a smoking deal on these things from a local dealer that had them in stock that we're going to be able to basically recoup our money entirely by selling the used set out of the 392. From the factory, they come with these little block-off plugs on the back of the headlight, making sure that they can't catch any air. But once you unscrew these, you can pop this guy out. Boom, there you go. Now, it's time to show you guys the best part about these headlights using this wire harness they gave us and a Milwaukee battery. We got ground. Yep, stick that bad boy in there.
Better buck off, you know, just in case.
I would, it's not a bad idea.
Oh,
there we go.
eee.
These lights, unlike the Hellcats and the Scat Packs that come with their respective logo inside of the air duct, this one just has the Dodge racing stripes. I know it's not the direct connection logo that I really wanted, but this, far and away, is the second best option. This is gonna be our first look at what this thing actually looks like. I've never had a car with such a fresh new paint job either. This is far and away the most careful I've ever been.
Oh.
I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in. We good?
Yeah. What?
Oh, that looks sick. If you'd have told me like a month ago that the toughest looking car that I've ever built was gonna be bright pink, yeah, no, I would not have believed you.
Is that normal?
I don't know. Maybe.
You look confused.
I was coming over to give you guys this whole pitch like, yeah, and I already had the line ready. The only thing standing between us and a full-body Demon 170 is a little bit of rear end work. And then I heard there's like sand or something in the spoiler. I mean, I guess I'm not gonna question it. We're just gonna roll with it. We'll feed our rear view camera harness down. And from there, it really just goes straight in. One bolt on that side, a couple pins in the middle, and if you look at it from the back, it just follows the curvature of the car so much better than some of the straight across spoilers they put on the older cars. Now, we get to throw our big center taillight in, which of course came from yet another Hellcat. And at this point, I've completely and utterly lost track of how many Hellcats we've used for this build, so you're just gonna have to refer to the counter that I'm gonna put like somewhere down there. The taillights in these are secured by these little twist-on plastic retainers, so you don't even need to use any tools to install them or remove them in case you are stealing a set. Now it's almost sort of looking like a car. Now we get to throw our rear wide body setup on, and I know I've got it in the comments every time I've called one of these things a wide body that Fender Flares aren't a wide body. Well, that's what Dodge calls it. They call it a wide body, so I'm calling it a wide body, even if I can't for the life of me install it. I've done this whole rant and still haven't got it in here.
Wow.
You got anything to add to this, Fernando?
No.
Can you please like save me on this one?
I'm trying to be cool, you know.
Oh, there, we got it. We're good. These things are super simple to install. They have these white plastic retainer clips, and then just 3 little screws that go right through the bumper. On the quarter panel portion of the Flares, the guys at Topcoat did a killer job of welding in those pieces we salvaged out of the OG Demon 170. Not only the outer skin, but the inside too, so it's completely closed in. If you didn't know any better, it almost passed for an original wide-body chassis. You guys already know how this goes. We've done it once, now we just do it for the final time. Get all these little clips lined up, and then, you know what? Do the honors. Just start slapping it. Tell me that's not a satisfying feeling.
It is, but it's scary.
It is a bit scary, right? Honestly, I was gonna call it right here, but there's just one more thing I wanna do. These badges, they've been staring at me with this yellow eye from across the shop for far too long now, so we're gonna go ahead and put them on. There is absolutely no measurement data out there for this, so we've looked at a lot of pictures and we're just going for it. I think we can get it to look really, really close. Oh, check that out. LA Demon Amber Eye. It is technically amber. Oh, Fernando, how would you make that face if you had to make that face?
I don't even know. You're the owner. You should replicate that.
It's like head's tilted down. Ugly motherfucker, isn't it? The fender line does give us the perfect kind of guideline to make it straight though, so that's good. At least it won't be crooked. Yep, looks good to me. Right there. Right there. I hope it looks good. You ready for it?
Go ahead.
Let's go. Let's do it. Boom. We've officially got ourselves a pink Demon 170. Even though by the VIN number, it's not technically Demon 170. It doesn't have a drivetrain, wiring, an interior, or really anything else that would make it a Demon 170. But we got ourselves a pink Demon 170. It didn't exactly come cheap though. We went wild at the Dodge dealership to the tune of $10,851. Then there's the paint job. Spraying every square inch of this car ran us $9,500, but it was so worth it. I couldn't be happier at the way this thing's turning out. It looks better than I honestly could have ever imagined. I knew it was gonna be cool in pink. I didn't know it was gonna be this cool. Now, there is one more thing that I really wanted to share with you guys this episode, but it's gonna have to wait until the next one. This is the police report for when the Demon 170 got stolen. We got pictures, names, locations, the story how it got stolen, and how it got recovered. Just need to make sure all my bases are covered legally before I share any of this, and I didn't want to hold this video up any longer. For now, let's just say next episode is, well, you'll see.
Oh my god. I already eat. I'm good.
Yep. You look like you don't know where you're at. You know, you gotta get the angle right. Nope, no, yeah, there you go, yep. That's about right. No effort whatsoever.